First of all, what is your name and what is your profession?
My name is Robert Moskowitz. Many people know me as Robert Anthony due to a previous business that I had called Robert Anthony Interiors, a retail store. My profession is I am an interior designer and a construction and renovation project manager. Societal Design Group is a full-service interior design and renovation company. We provide interior design and space planning services. We do complete construction and renovation project management and also residential interior decoration. My role within the company is I am the principal designer and the lead project manager. I'm also responsible for purchases and coordination and pretty much anything that needs to be done in the company falls into my realm of responsibility. I tend not to be a micromanager. I like to employ and use people that I feel comfortable are able to do their job. I like to give them a task and give them the freedom to achieve their goals on their own. On a busy day, I spend probably 50% of my time traveling between any different number of projects that we're working on. I try to visit every individual project every day to make sure that things are moving as they should. I also spend a lot of my time sitting at my desk making design plans and purchase orders and making sure that all of the elements for any particular project arrive when they're supposed to. So a lot of my job is coordination and individual visits to project sites. On a slow day, I try to spend my time doing marketing and social media, reaching out to real estate agents and other people that I network with to try to build business. What led me to become an interior designer was actually a career change for me. At about 30 years old, I had decided that what I was doing previously was not what I should be doing. I did what a lot of people do, quite honestly, which was read a lot of books about career path and your true place in society. It's something that I had wanted to do for a long time. I spoke to a few people that I was fortunate enough to know who had been in the design business for a number of years about the path of doing this, and decided to go back to school to take classes for interior design and renovation management. My design style is very specifically classic. I use that word for a specific reason. My style is not necessarily traditional. To me, classic indicates something that is timeless. I prefer styles and interiors that look as though they could have been done at any time. I don't necessarily like styles that are faddish or dated. I prefer someone to walk into something that I've done and feel like it's something that is timeless, that could have been done 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, or yesterday, or 10 years from now. I don't like things that go out of style. I like things that perpetuate for long periods of time. I would say that there are two things that set me apart from other design firms. The first thing that sets me apart is that we are a full-service company. Most interior design firms do just interior design. My company, what we bring to a client is a full-service business. We provide the design and space planning services. We specify all of the required elements for any individual project. But then we also have the team of contractors and craftsmen and artisans to actually implement the plan, which most interior design firms do not provide. And unlike firms that do design build, we also come in at the end and provide decorating services. So we provide the furniture and the furnishings. So I think our primary thing that sets us apart is that we are a full service, one-stop firm for anything that you would need as far as designing or renovating your home. I do think that my classic style sets me apart somewhat as well. Most young designers or designers in my age group tend to lean more towards modern contemporary styles. And as I mentioned, my style is very specifically classic. I had about 13 years of experience in doing this, and in those 13 years, my team has changed over time. Primarily because I am very specific about the quality of the people that I use. So I have spent a lot of time making sure that the people that I bring on board are top quality and top rate in what they do. That's somewhat difficult to do sometimes with a contracting team. Contractors are notoriously unreliable. So it's taken me quite some time to get my team together. But now, 13 years in, fortunately, I have a very qualified, very responsible team of people who work for me and represent me and the company very well. Things that I feel are hip these days as far as trends, it seems that most design trends are moving a little bit away from the traditionally warm colors and moving more towards grays and whites, blacks, with punches of color. Although I appreciate the beauty of the gray tones and things that people are going for in that direction, in reference to an earlier question, I prefer things that are timeless. And I fear a little bit that 10 years from now or 15 years from now, the gray tones and things that go along with that will look very dated from this time period in life. Oftentimes you walk into a home and you can specifically tell that it was decorated in the 80s, for example, or it was decorated in the 90s because of color schemes and styles. I try to avoid those things. So although I appreciate current trends, and quite honestly, it brings me more business if I decorate your house today and 10 years from now it looks dated and I have to come back and do it again. That certainly brings me more business, and I'm not complaining about that. But again, I like things that look timeless. I think quality sometimes is subjective. There are certainly high-end custom companies that provide outstanding products. Companies like Baker and Pearson and some of the other kind of well-known furniture manufacturers and home accessory manufacturers. Unfortunately, not everyone has the financial means or the ability to afford that type of product. So I prefer to consider what is a good value. I consider what my clients can afford in their budget and try to find them the best quality product for the dollars that they can afford. So to say what is the best quality product in some ways depends on who the client is and what the project requires. I spend a fair amount of my time discussing with other designers, other people who do what I do, what are the latest trends. But because of what I do that involves construction and things of that nature, I also spend a fair amount of my time with plumbers and electricians and making sure that I'm as knowledgeable as I possibly can be about current trends in plumbing. Faucetry changes every year. Faucets become different from even in the installation of them from last year to this year. So a lot of that I learn in the field, so to speak. I think that there are a fair amount of do-it-yourself projects that a creative person can take on their own and be very successful. The other side of that is that I think that HGTV and do-it-yourself type shows have given people the impression that a project can be completed in 48 hours on a zero budget. And unfortunately, that's not realistic in the real world. Things like painting a room, doing some do-it-yourself projects are certainly wonderful. People, indoor and outdoor. With a little bit of creativity, the average person can take a very boring space and do something that makes it really look extremely creative and designer done. The majority of projects, however, require someone with expertise. And there are often times where people think that they can do a project on their own and then encounter problems that they were not prepared for and are not educated enough to anticipate and know how to correct. So the delivery guys were here twice attempting to get this refrigerator through this door. We tried Vaseline and a shoehorn and anything else that we could possibly do to get this refrigerator in here. An understanding of the process of implementation, which is often where people screw themselves up, quite honestly. They think, oh, I'm gonna rip out my kitchen and basically replace everything back, and all I need to do is select cabinets and countertop, and I can do that on my own. But they don't anticipate all of the issues that potentially arise in doing a project like that. And do-it-yourself has given people the false understanding that they can do everything. My individual interaction with every client. In the course of doing this over 13 years, I've had many different designers working for me. I've had a handful of different interns. And although I appreciate and love the compliment that my clients always seem to want to deal directly with me, it makes it very difficult to expand the business when the client always wants me. My advice to a young interior design student would be twofold. First, I would recommend to them to be understanding that your own personal likes and dislikes and understandings as a designer are not the only thing that's important in working in a project. It's very important to consider the tastes and requirements of the client and realize how important they are in the process. Interior design and renovation is certainly about beauty, but it's also about functionality. So it's very important to consider the client and their use of any individual project when you as the designer leave. The second thing that I would recommend to a young design student is to realize that 50%, 60% of what I do in any given day does not involve design. It's a business. And most of what I do is run a business, regardless of the fact that it's a design business. I spend a lot of my time cultivating clients, trying to get new clients, dealing with administrative and purchasing and bookkeeping and all of the things that come along with any normal business. So for any design student to think that 100% of their time will be spent picking colors and fabrics and doing design, unfortunately it's really not. A lot of it is a business. I would have to say there's three projects that I'm most proud of. About 8 or 9 years ago, one of the first of what I would say would be one of my first higher end projects. I renovated a penthouse at the Academy House here in Philadelphia. For an older woman, she was a widow. It was a fair amount of work. It wasn't an enormous renovation. But when the project was completed, she was so happy and so satisfied with the work that I had done that she called me in tears. So that makes me very happy. Aside from that, I recently completed a renovation of 5 units at Society Hill Towers. My client purchased 5 individual units and we combined them, knocked all the walls down. It was a year-long project. It was an enormous budget, well over $1 million just for the renovations. The client was very specific about what they wanted. It was very detail-oriented. And although it was extremely time-consuming, the end result was actually even more beautiful than I had hoped it would be. I guess the third of those, and this will be my final one, about 4 years ago, I was involved, I handled the renovation of the Independent Hotel here in Philadelphia. It was a quick turnaround project. The client, which is a hotel company that purchased the building, hoped to have the renovation done in a very short period of time. And I managed, and my team managed to renovate this property on budget and on time. It was completed within 8 weeks, which no one thought we could ever do. It was done on budget. We didn't have to spend an exorbitant amount of money to get the project done on time. And the reason that I mention all three of these is because every one represents something different that I do. I try to get jobs done on time and on budget. I try to work with all of the details of a big residential project and make it turn out more beautiful than I hoped it had. And at the end of the day, to have an older woman call me in tears about how happy she is for the way her house turned out, every one of those things brings me a different level of satisfaction that is very much a part of what I do every day.
See you soon.